As teachers, we need to learn from people who give great presentations or lectures, such as Steve Jobs and some of those who do Toastmaster talks, some who give really good TED talks. We know about some of that stuff already. Of course, we all need to get better at it, learn more about things like repeating things a number of times, getting your audience more interested in your presentation, but or better graphics. There are some TED talks that discuss how to use PowerPoint better. We could learn a lot from that, and we could learn better about how to format information in notes on the blackboard and other written things we do graphically. We should also try to present information in a better format, use space more, present things graphically well, use space and graphics on a chalkboard or in notes more effectively, instead of just throw in information on the page as if you spilled paint or something. We need to paint a great picture instead of just dump a bunch of paint on the page for students. But as educators, we have more responsibility. People who do work presentations can do things like that. As an educator, the point is to train students to reason. So while other people, of course, have to pay attention to their reasoning, we have more responsibility about that. We've got to make sure we're teaching students how to reason as well as present things effectively. So we need to think about the logic of what we're doing. Think about if we're building in a hierarchy, in a structure, from information up to the concept or generalizations that we're trying to teach. Some examples, like in physics, we should drive things more experimentally and inductively, be looking at reality, trying to figure out cause-effect relationships so we can understand the world better, be more effective in our action and living. And we should be asking questions to figure out what the nature of things are, how they act, and then we have to do experiments sometimes to make a decision about what the right idea is. In a context, we can figure out some explanations for something, and then when we experiment, we can make sure that's the correct thing. It's this and not something else. Study Mill's methods to get some ideas about that. And there's a lot more to induction than that, but those are helpful methods to understand what's going on. Same thing in chemistry. We should look at basic substances in the world, start to classify things, start to look at reactions, and then we can build our way up as we learn more chemistry and physics to understanding what water is, how it's hydrogen and oxygen. That's a simple experiment that students could do. So things like that we should do instead of just be told. Some stuff is too dangerous or too abstract. Students can't do things like that, but there are a lot of experiments they could do with acids and bases to get experience of that, to have a first-hand knowledge of what it is, to rationally and objectively build up those concepts. I don't mean to construct knowledge as John Dewey did. I think Dewey is totally wrong. He's philosophically, got things upside down, backwards, inside out, and corrupt. But we need to do things more as in the tradition of Aristotle, Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, William Harvey, Darwin, people like that. When we look at great scientists, we can learn a lot about how knowledge develops, and we can do that by looking at how ideas develop through history. That's a big thing we as educators should do to be able to present things better to students. So we know how things actually developed, we can figure out what the essentials were, and so we can see what kind of mistakes people tend to make. If the great scientists tend to do it, then probably the students are going to do it too. Or a lot of the students will do even less because they're not some of these great scientists in this context. In history, we can learn general ideas and details about how people lived and what they did, what went on in certain cultures in 3 or 4 years, learn all world history, and then go back and cycle through it at a deeper level, and then go back and cycle through it a third time at a much deeper level, where you can start reading some original sources, comparing cultures, looking at deeper causes, because then after having gone through history a couple of times, you have the context to do that. Instead of having history thrown at you as if it's coming at you from a fire hose, where you can't breathe, you can't function, you're stunned. We should go in slower and get more depth in how we teach it. So let's try to present knowledge better. You know, we can all be better presenters, repeat things a number of times, say what we're going to say, and then say it, and then say what we said, convey information in a good form, pay attention to formatting knowledge, writing and graphics, make sure we're interesting our audience and know who they are. But more importantly, as educators, we have to pay attention to the logic of it. I have other videos about aspects of logic that you could watch to get ideas about what to do. Think about some of this on your own. But you know, basically, remember, logic is connecting a concept to the evidence of the senses. So we need to think about that. How an idea would be developed logically and the context in which it is in, so we can relate this idea to other ideas and act on it better. That's something to think about. Hope that helps, and hope we make education better, make this a better culture.